Welcome to Unsourced Wall. My name is Elvis, and as always, I am your host. Okay, so we're starting off this week with a great slew of comics, news, and maybe some interesting reviews as well. We have in store this week a full review of Brightburn, that evil Superman movie produced by James Gunn. We'll have the spoiler review at the very end of the show. I'll give out a time code for anyone who's, really wants to see the movie without going in spoiled. And honestly, we'll get to that when we get to that, but I think it's going to be a really fun episode this week. So let's get on right into it with some movie news. First off, we have the rather hopeful news that Taika Waititi is going to be directing the long-gestating Akira movie and is hoping to cast Asian American leads in the roles. It's set for a 2021 release date. Hopefully, the years spent on developing this movie will mean that we will get something that's at least watchable. The original film as an adaptation of the manga is incredibly tight and really pragmatic. I don't know if a modern movie could possibly be the same in terms of knowing how to structure it. I really don't. But hopefully Taika is able to inject some skill into whatever comes his way. I wasn't so impressed with Thor Ragnarok, but I know it excited some people, so I hope that their excitement is justified. Fingers crossed. In some lighter news, we also have that Keanu Reeves would like to play Constantine again, and I'm all for that. I've always been a fan of that movie, and I think that he still has what it takes to make that interpretation work. I feel like he would also be the perfect headliner for that Justice League Dark movie that WB has been putting into development hell. Just take Del Toro's script and rewrite his Constantine to fit. Boom, right? Seriously though, it'll probably never happen, but I would give someone's left arm to see Tilda Swinton's Gabriel return. Maybe as a bum of some sort, but also somehow cheery as ever. I mean, that would be so good. Oh my god, I love that movie. I'm gonna see it again. Now we head on into a slew of delays, so let's do it as some quick shots. First off, we have the Super Pets theatrical animated movie has been delayed from May 2021 to sometime summer 2022. And after that, we have that the Spawn movie has been delayed due to producers and screenwriters not being able to finalize a script or even agree on one. McFarlane has said that he will look for independent financing if this continues, which is, good luck on that, Todd. Fingers crossed for both of these movies though, and that they see the light of day sometime soon, because I think they do have potential to be at least, entertaining. Moving on to TV news, there's absolutely nothing. And also, I guess Swamp Thing has some new promotional photos, which again showcases how great the production design of this show has been. And even though I think all the trailers have been completely terrible, at least that's perfectly on point. So hopefully, fingers crossed that Swamp Thing follows suit as an actually good show anyway. And lastly, we have some comic news. Let's start this off with some unfortunate news. Marvel colorist Justin Ponsor died this week of cancer. This has been such a blow for many of his colleagues and fans. While I've only had the chance to read a few of his works that he was heavily involved with, the ones I did were absolutely standing out by his inclusion and his work on them. I'll never forget Ultimate Extinction, for example, and just the sheen and the sort of radiance of the Silver Heralds, or the impact of the one page of the Ultimate Nullifier. They were just kind of breathtaking. It really pulls you into the story and sort of just smacks you in the face with just sort of the really weird ethereal qualities. It's a sad event, and I hope that wherever Justin Ponsor is now, that he's resting and at peace and hopefully, well. People miss you here though, and I hope the best for his family and friends in this trying time. I really do. So rest in peace, Justin Ponsor. Rest in peace. Next with comic news is that Tom King is leaving his Batman run to finish his storyline in an all-new series called Batman Catwoman. This was originally reported by Bleeding Cool under the sensationalist idea that Tom King's Batman run was being dropped by DC entirely. If only we were so lucky. And yeah, I've heard the takes that Tom King being fired from Batman was bad because it made comic skaters happy. That's not an argument. That's the opposite of an argument. Maybe it would make sense if this was a concession to Comicsgate, but it wasn't at all. Comicsgate was too busy paying for $80 single issues and calling themselves the new punk rock of comics to care. I mean, they care because, woo, we struck a blow, but no. I mean, they're fucking lunatics. Tom King's Batman possibly being cut off at 85 issues is not a problem. Hell, some creators would be so lucky to get 85 issues. Imagine if James Robinson had been given 85 issues of full self-indulgent freedom on Earth 2. It would be insanity. It's insanity that they gave Tom King a blank check outright. But yeah, it was all a bunch of chaos for no reason, since Tom King's be finishing up his run in a new series. Ah well, at least he's not shitting up Adam Strange or something. The worst thing to come out of this definitely was CBR calling Tom King the next Jack Kirby. and which is just boggling my mind. That's about as crazy as calling Ethan Van Sciver the new Alan Moore, which some comic skaters have, so what a time it's been. It really has been quite ridiculous. And lastly, in comic news, some levity. It turns out that a collage variant from Marvel Comics number 1000 accidentally used art from Earth 2, the introduction to Alan Scott no less, where he kisses his fiancée. The rumor right now is that the person editing the collage thought it would be Billy and Teddy, but we don't have confirmation, I don't think. It's pretty funny though, and I wonder if it ever made it to print yet. We're probably not that fortunate. Anyway, they're changing the variant last minute, and phooey for that. It would have been amazing if we had wide release Marvel Comics 1000 and Earth 2 was on it. But overall, I guess it just goes to show that everything surrounding Marvel 1000 was pretty gold. Hopefully the actual issue will give me as much joy and laughter as this has. Now let's move on into what I read this week. First off, we have The Goon number 2. I know I was less than enthusiastic about the previous issue. I thought it was okay, but it felt like a concession and a regression in the least exciting of ways. Now this issue also feels like a regression, but in all the best ways. The tone of Goon and Frankie settling down feels more full of promise than it did before. In the first issue, it felt very tinged with defeatism, while here it's definitely something that they're coming to terms with and really holding down by themselves. It's honestly much more exciting and much more engaging that way. It feels more inevitable than it does retracting the new status quo that it felt before. It makes the total sidelining of the Lords of Misery that much more palpable and much more refreshing, even if it is just doing the same old thing. And well, let me tell you, it's doing the same old thing as good as it ever has. Not only do we get some wondrously humorous gags, but also some really dramatic and horrific set pieces and beats. I've binged the entire original series several times, and I have to be honest, when it got goofy, it would get goofy, and it would just pull me out of it, and it would threaten to collapse under that weight. Yet it's issues like this that make me appreciate the grasp that Powell does have on comedy and horror, and how incredible that mix can be when he gets it just right. And he gets it pretty much spot on in this one, keeping the stakes and tension high, but knowing when to cut in with a joke, and how to tell that joke. It's a potent formula, and seeing it performed with such skill makes me welcome this relaunch all the more than I have before. I hope the rest of this relaunch can live up to this issue's example. It's going to need that if it wants to continue to survive. I really do think that. It's a fun issue that sets up some adequately interesting antagonistic forces. I can't wait to read more, and I think it's just great having to get this duo back into the action and now not missing a step at all. It's really fun and it's really enjoyable read, and it just makes me appreciate that this series is still going on 20 years later, and as long as it can really pull together a fulfilling story, then I don't really give a shit that it's a relaunch and that we don't get to see the further adventures. I really don't. I think it's gonna be a great time if this is to be expected here. 2 thumbs up. Next up, we have Dial H number 3, which is another stellar issue. I don't know what else there's to say about this other than that Humphries and Quinones are killing it on this book. It doesn't seem that they've missed a step with approaching this in the least in the past 3 issues that they've had. We're halfway through, and they've even managed to add in a second artist, Aris Dane, who fits in like a glove in scenes where the art switches around. Both of these artists capture the mood and tension of Summer's backstory and how it affects the present perfectly. It's palpable and makes the catharsis of it all in the regular storyline all that much more powerful. I don't know if Dane is going to stay on, but I think it's a great way to keep the art styles free-flowing and interesting. Not that Quinones is slacking on that front either, since they knock another hero out of the park with this incredible Vertigo Comics homage, something that, again, feels very natural and knowledgeable about what made those art styles, or at least the public perception of what those art styles even were, so iconic and unique. It's not superficial or flat, but full of character all on its own. I know that people are saying Quinones is the main draw here, and it's stuff like this that makes me understand why, even if I do think that Humphries is pulling around an equal amount of weight. There's a lot of great comedic beats here, and I think it's really great that they're able to paint these kids as, well, being kids on an adventure. There's really bountiful energy here, and it's bouncing off the page. It's wonderful. I feel like I'm going to harp on that every issue, but this mini just feels so youthful and joyful. It's magnificent at that. So yeah, I think this is a great issue. Halfway into this mini, and each issue has been awesome. That's incredible. That's a ride, and I am going all along for it. It's been such a joy. 2 thumbs up. I can't wait for the next one. We're getting Snapper Carr, and I can't wait to see how they handle him. Oh boy, it's going to be quite a kick. And lastly for this week, it was a short week, we have Martian Manhunter number 5. Again, this series blows me away. Somehow Rossmo and Orlando have shown no signs of losing momentum. If anything, they're actually gaining some, which is not what I expected at all from a book with Orlando's name on it when this was first announced. But it's pretty spectacular. The fact that it might actually be getting better, reaching further heights than it already has been operating at, is thrilling. And this issue starts the ball rolling again. We have this amazing sequence, the main villain of this series, Charn, a disgraced Martian criminal, and it's the most intense thing I've read from Orlando. The character is perfectly realized as this angry, vindictive, vengeful, and insane monster. The back and forth he and John have and share is brilliant. It's a little frightening even. It's dreadful but also entertaining and helps to solidify Charn as this really enjoyable threat and moving past the cliche of another evil Martian. And it just works that the pages are still so beautiful, even when they're horrifying like this, and the emotional quandary that Diane and John share and are in continues to collide and wrinkle. Everything about the emotional beats in this issue are on point and work in tandem with the art. It's intense and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. Oh my god, I love this Maxi series so much. Especially and unfortunately since we're heading into the fall of Mars. It's gutting. The final pages show the final moments before its destruction, and it's heart-wrenching. We see John being tortured in the present, sure, but it doesn't quite hit so much as seeing poor Florence start to succumb to Ron Muir's curse. It's the saddest thing in the series so far, and there's been a lot of really sad things. Next month is going to be really dreadful and rough and hurtful. So what we have here are fully developed characters, highly threatening and depicted stakes, and overbearing tragedy. And it's all in balance. It's masterful. 2 thumbs up. That has been such a great week. Everything has been 2 thumbs up. Thank God. This was so fun. Oh my god, I wish more weeks are like this so I can just be happy about every single thing that came out. And let's keep the ball rolling with what I watched this week. First off, we have Doom Patrol episode 15, the season finale called Ezekiel Patrol. We finally reached the final episode here. I can't believe it's been almost 4 months of this show. With all of its ups and downs, I can honestly say that this has been one of the tightest, most consistent, and most thoroughly entertaining seasons of a comic show I've ever seen. It's been amazing, and honestly, it's been just so great to see this show develop and hold steady week by week. Something that rides the balance between mass appeal and also being confident in its own method of chaos. And there's nothing really as exemplary as that as this finale. There is just so much packed in this finale that's barely even an hour, from flashbacks to origin redefinitions, time skips, alliances, betrayals, last-ditch efforts. It's a lot to take in, but it's a testament to the show that finds the time to take all of these and make them feel fulfilling. Is it perfect? Hell no. I feel like every 15 minutes of this could have been an episode all on its own, and could have really benefited from being expanded and explored a lot more than it does. I wouldn't have minded at all, and it would have been just a genuinely more well-rounded experience. All that said, it's the rapidity, the kineticism, and the unabashed and unashamed fragmentation of it all that gives this series and this season and this finale that freewheeling destructive attitude. It gives what's limited in scope a greater, more widespread attitude. Much like the episode before last, each member of the team feels like a contribution to the whole, and none of them pulls the focus, each getting small but refined character moments. My favorite having to be Rita, since she goes places in this one, and comes across as having been the best adjusted here. I feel like she's definitely come into her own as a character, and this is the perfect pinpoint for that. We already had closures for arcs for Cliff and Larry and Cyborg even, a little bit, but I think that this is where Rita finally stands her own ground. Crazy Jane comes in at second place, her personal intimate arc being a key component of the denouement. I know people have been touch and go with Jane's character, but it capped her off this season on a high, and I think that really does help keep her character steady and, well, quite interesting. I think that this character was good. The plot is raucous enough anyway, and it's held aloft by Mr. Nobody, giving us the most in-depth look at the character in the entire season, finally getting into the character's own foibles and flaws and little eccentricities, and it works. Through his renewed POV, the show gets this strong underlining voice that we've only gotten a little bit here and there, that pulls all these off-the-wall threads together in its final scenes. It's just great. Yeah, I could go on and on about how fantastic things like Ezekiel or Admiral Whiskers were, and that'd be appropriate. But it's the why of how this episode works that makes the difference, and it's the merging of sincerity and humor. It truly wants to impart a depth of emotion while not taking other aspects of itself so seriously, and it does a really good job of shifting back and forth because you know that it means whatever it's trying to say in the moment, and it lands each intention here in this finale. It's not so much a conclusive ending, by far from it honestly, nor is it a cliffhanger to set up another season, but it is a stopping point. It does take care of the immediate seasonal threat, and I feel it's the stopping point that this season has deserved. I can't wait to see what comes up next. I really can. I hope that this gets a second season. Even if it didn't, I'd be happy. It tells a full story, I think. However, one thing that did get me is that they totally set up Elastigirl, Rita coming up and becoming giant, and it's perfectly shot, and then it just kind of doesn't. I like that it didn't do it because, subverted expectations. Not even. It just didn't do the expected. That's the difference. And I thought that, well, Hopefully next season we'll see some of that, because she has been slowly, finally realizing what her powers can be. And now that she's more well adjusted, I think that we can finally get the 50-foot tall woman. And hopefully next season we get that. We get the Brain, we get Monsieur Mala. I don't know, I just want to see them all together. I want to see the Brotherhood of Evil. I want to see the Brotherhood of Dada. Let's just get this going, man. Also, Flex was absent in this episode, but that's no matter. I feel like they didn't really know what to do with him outside using him as a plot point. And great season, great episode, 2 thumbs up. Man, I really hope Swamp Thing is able to live up to this one's legacy. I really don't look forward to it at all, but I hope I'm wrong, and I hope it's a great time. Now, let's move on into the Brightburn review. Let's start off with a spoiler-free review here. I'll let you know when the spoiler section comes up so you can look at the time code in the description below. Anyway, it's decent. It's okay. It's average. And well, it's not bad, but it's also nothing special. There's been a lot of hullabaloo about this movie and some very hot takes on it, but it's kind of all unwarranted. It's harmless, and it's not going to be a classic. Now, what does that even mean? It means that it's able to distinguish itself from other evil child genre movies by finding character cores and beats to give its characters. And it does play around with the set pieces and showing how the cliches of the genre could be applied to superpowers. It's not generic, and it isn't going the easy, lazy route either. There's something actually there to experience and enjoy. The problem is that it doesn't really take advantage of itself past these. All it has are just the cores of the characters, some beats, and some creativity. But it's not at all well-rounded past that. There are aspects of the plot that are glossed over, undercooked, and dimensions to the characters that are only hinted at but never given time to really develop or flourish. It could have been a really solid movie, but it seems content with being a novelty. A decently done novelty where people had some actual thought put into it, that much is clear, but nothing more than that, which is a shame. And it's a shame because when you watch this movie, and if you've seen the movie I'm about to talk about, you understand how much these movies seem to be similar to, and how much the previous movie did all of this exact same plot, exact same characters, exact same structure, so much better. And that movie is Damien the Omen 2. Like, down to the last frame, this is exactly that movie. If you haven't seen this, I will explain both in the upcoming spoiler section. Now, while I said this movie isn't generic and distinguishes itself, that's still true. It's just that The Omen 2 does every single facet of this plot so much better, from the parental characters to showcasing the main characters fall into like villainy and just how much that actually affects them, and just to see all of these things actually get more than just lip service, which is what I want to see from Brightburn, but it's just the bare minimum, while The Omen 2 actually does know what it wants to do. And that's the difference. I think Brightburn had inkling of an idea, but it's like, that'd be cool, and that was it. The Omen 2, while a very campy, ridiculous movie, knows exactly what to do with the framework than just letting it be framework. Now, I don't want to say that Brightburn completely ripped off The Omen 2, but the similarities are too much to ignore if you've seen both. But yeah, as a simple genre film with no lofty aims or goals, Brightburn is simply decent. It's okay. It's got enough good character plotting and set pieces that it's not going to rock your world or even really stick with you, but it'll be good enough as a rental on video on demand someday. So overall, I'd say a 7 out of 10, 1 thumb middle, 1 thumb up. Alright, so we're going to head into spoilers in a couple of seconds. Check the description below if you want to skip over them. Alright, here we go. First things first. Like I said, I think the movie was pretty smart in how it decided to play the characters, especially Brandon's turn to evil. Now again, I think a lot of this is lifted from The Omen 2, but even the bare minimum works just as well here, making it something that is compelled of him, rather than making the argument that he himself was always inherently evil. It makes for a good amount of tension with following the character through their own singular scenes for most of the movie, and even getting engaged with how the character is struggling with this thing that's taken over their identity, and how it's in turn struggling with who he's been beforehand. Like how his entire foray into puberty in this movie is some really dreadfully crossed wires, and it's played off eerie as hell. It's kind of skillfully done. The problem is though, like, it's glossed over, and we never really see who Brandon was as a kid in the first place. We never get a real fix on what he was like. We're only told, and the movie just starts off with him already coming into possession of this new mentality and these powers. It feels really flat sometimes, especially when they're trying to hammer home how he's changed. With The Omen 2, a huge chunk of the first half deals with Damien's life as an actual kid. We get the chance to get a grip on who he is as a regular boy, or so he thinks. This movie, however, Brightburn, well, it's focused on moments but nothing introspective and reflective. And it's kind of shoddy when you notice that it's just punctuated by beats rather than fully rounded out character set pieces. Now, a huge part of this is, well, like I said, that puberty angle. It's definitely half a coming-of-age movie where Brandon is trying to make sense of his burgeoning teenhood and hormones. And a big aspect of that is this girl he has a crush on. And I shit you not, this girl drives about 70% of the movie's plot, and she just disappears. We get no closure or conclusion to their horrifying dynamic together. It's interesting, and again, showcases more of Brandon as a character and someone who is struggling with his, new personality override and powers, but it's just there to do the bare minimum and to just set a creepy, horrific tone. Everything is here to do that. The parents are given enough fleshing out to not just make them props, same with Brandon, and same with the set pieces. It's enough to just make them interesting and to get the feel for them, but not really to understand or really engage with them. It's just enough. And it doesn't really do any of these the justice they're screaming out for. If Brightburn were a worse movie, I would not mind. But there's enough talent and ability shown even in the barest bones here that makes the waste of potential clearer. As a singular horror movie, it's mediocre, but it could have been something memorable. If this gets a sequel, I'd watch the hell out of that. I really would. Just to see where they could and should bring this and develop this. Because it's fertile ground and deserves better. It can be better. But it's still not bad where it is now. Just underwhelming with moments of promise. Overall though, if this was any interest to you, I would recommend The Omen 2 over it any day. Like I said, silly movie. But it has a better grasp of the same plot and handles the character arcs much better by making them actual arcs. But overall, Brightburn, 7 out of 10. 1 thumb middle, 1 thumb up. Hope for a sequel. Let's get some Lex Luthor type in there, make some interesting shit happen, Not in a generic way, but just to see how they could play around with that dynamic within this confines of this movie. And here we head on into listener questions. We have one question this week from the ever amazing Akicat on Twitter. And their question is, who is my favorite evil Superman? And well, that's a huge question. Of course, we have Ultraman and all of his incarnations, who is an all-time classic. But then we have stuff like what Mark Waid did with Irredeemable, which is okay-ish, and a whole slew of Elseworlds parodies and homages. I think I'll go with one that deserves a little bit more love, like Hernan Guerrera, the Superman of Gods and Monsters. Not evil per se, but definitely a bit more cold and with a huge authoritative streak. Being the son of Zod and originally kind of a Kryptonian supremacist, it's an interesting take and doesn't skimp on giving Guerrera character and development. He's fully fleshed out and engaging all of his own, and that journey to a more altruistic place throughout the movie makes him really fun and really deftly to follow. I think he's kind of the bee's knees. Of course, a well done Bizarro or Ultraman will always steal my heart, but Guerrera is a character I wish had more avenues to showcase how special they are. And honestly, it's a shame that we never got continuation of Gods and Monsters because he could have been really, really fascinating. I think a stellar highlight of the DC multiverse if, they'd given him more of a chance. And he definitely is one of the better mainstream DC evil Superman. I mean, Injustice Superman isn't going to steal that crown anytime soon, let me tell you that. But, fine. I think that was a really great question, Nakikat. I had a lot of fun answering it, and I implore everyone to watch Gods and Monsters if you're listening to this and you haven't seen it. Guerrero is just one part of a whole multifaceted animated movie that is really just an insane roller coaster ride of enjoyment to watch. I definitely recommend it. I give it 2 thumbs up. And again, thank you for that question, Akicat. It was really fun talking about this character and this movie. And well, thank you for all the questions that you've sent in, all the thoughts and comments you've sent in. It really means a lot. And I want to thank everyone out there who has ever sent in a question or a comment. It is just awesome, and I am so appreciative of it. It's amazing. If anyone out there has their own questions or comments they want to hear discussed on the show, you can find me on Twitter at THE_SNICKMAN. And I want to give a shout out to the cover artist for the show at DOTEMCEE. Check them out. They really deserve it. They're awesome. And I guess that's it for this week. Next week we have, I think, the premiere of Swamp Thing, which is going to be fun to talk about. Good or bad. I hope you guys can join me for that. And I hope you have a great Memorial Day weekend. And I hope you have a great week too. See you then.